Hey guys, I am Jordan and I am the owner of Jordan's Flower Farm. I am a year two flower farmer and we are going into our third year of flower farming. And in our first year of flower farming, we mainly focused on selling wholesale and selling at farmers markets. But we made the decision that we wanted to switch to focusing on farm sales, which meant adding a farm stand to our property and doing on farm workshops. So I thought today we would talk about what it looked like adding a flower stand onto our property and how we were able to take our farm from zero on farm sales to 5 figures of on farm sales in our second year of flower farming. So, to start, I thought we would talk about why start a flower farm stand. So, the reasons that we started a farm stand were one, a higher profit margin, two, more time with our family, and three, the customer interaction. So, let's talk about each one of those. So, first things first, let's talk about customer interaction. So, one of the things that I really learned being at the farmers market was how much I enjoyed retail sales. I didn't actually expect this. I didn't think that that would be something that I would thoroughly enjoy, but turns out I do. Being at the farmers market taught me that I love being able to interact with customers and talk with customers. So, I don't know about y'all, but I tend to be a little bit more introverted. So, the idea of making retail sales or selling in general just can feel so overwhelming sometimes, but it's fun talking with customers when you're talking with them about the thing that you love the most. So we made the shift. So then I guess you asked, why switch from farmers market to flower stand? Why not just continue with the farmers market if you knew you loved the farmers market? Well, originally my idea was to do both. And still, I think that that is what I would really like to do, is to do both, because I really, really loved the market. I just think it was a little too much for me in my second year, trying to keep up with having a full-time job, doing the farm stand, and doing the farmers market. But I think in future years, we definitely want to add the farmers market back in, because I love that customer interaction. It was the absolute highlight of my week. But the reason, when we looked at both of the options, when we compared farm stand to the farmers market, the reason that we chose to go with farm stand and focus on that in year two and building that customer base is really that it is more profitable to have a farm stand versus farmers market for us. And what that really boils down to is just our labor costs. And so the labor of the setup, tear down, and the having to sit at the market really eats into our profit margin. That was one of the main decisions why we decided to switch to the farm stand, is it just had a lot higher of a profit margin than being at the farmer's market. The other thing I mentioned was time with family. So if you're a mom like me, and this flower farm is your side hustle, so you already have a full-time job, you're a mom, there's just not a lot of time left. So having to sit at a farmer's market, for 6 hours on a Saturday was really hard. So having the farm stand allowed me to be at the farm, spending time with my kids while the farm stand was open, or to be home doing things, since it's a self-serve farm stand. So I was still able to sell flowers, but also get to spend time with my family. So that was a big driving factor in why we switched. And again, profit margin. So the reason that we really focused on retail in year two is because it has a higher profit margin. So I always thought, because I am so introverted, that I would end up really focusing on selling wholesale to florists. And that is a large part of our business. Even still in year two, it's still a large part of our business. But what I found is that I really loved interacting with our retail customers, and it brings in more profit than selling wholesale. And so, when you're a small scale flower farm, it can be hard to keep your business afloat only doing wholesale, because the profit margins are just so low already on flowers, and then even lower when you're only doing wholesale. So switching to retail gave us that ability to charge a little more for the flowers that we're growing. And so, one, we can scale back on how much we're growing, and we can make more money growing less flowers. So it just seemed like a win-win when it's just part-time for us. The other thing about having a farm stand, and why we decided to make that switch to retail, is that I think that it can really, and I don't even know that our switch was so much to we're only doing a farm stand. When I view it as on-farm sales versus off-farm sales. And so really in year one, we were all off-farm. It was wholesale, it was farmer's market, there was no on-farm sales. And so what my big shift has been is that we are shifting to on-farm sales. And so that being a CSA that's picked up on farm, that being our flower stand that's on farm, or workshops that are on farm. I think as the years go on, we'll get better at all of those things. I would also like to offer on-farm photography, but there's only so much you can do in one year and you can do well. So I really decided this year would be the year that we focus on building our flower stand. Okay, so let's jump right into the how to get started with a flower stand. So first things first, make sure you are choosing the right location. So think about where your farm's located. Does it make sense to have a flower stand there? Are you allowed to have a flower stand there? That's one of the things that you have to consider. So knowing like your property, does your property have any restrictions on it? Are there any like permitting or zoning issues in the location? So when we chose this property, we checked into all that. We made sure we were allowed to have our farm stand there before we put it there. Those are really things that you want to check into. If you haven't bought a property yet, absolutely check on it before. If you have bought a property, check on it now because you want to make sure you can do it before you do it. You don't want to invest the money in it or invest the time to grow the flowers, then find out you can't sell them in your farm stand. So make sure that you're choosing the right location. Now, I'm not as huge of a believer in like, you have to be on a busy road. Like, would that help? Yes, that'd be awesome if you could drive traffic just from people driving past your farm stand. But also, we're not all on busy roads. Like, my farm is on a dead end road, actually. We have a private road in front of our farm. And so if they're coming to us, they have to be intentionally seeking us out. So for us, what that meant was that we were doing marketing to get people to our farm. So that might be something that you have to do. So make sure that you're choosing the right location. So are there other flower farms around that are already doing similar things? That's one of the things that I researched before we bought this property that we're on now, made sure that there weren't any other flower farms in the area. Also, it's fine if there are. Like, there can be more than one. There's plenty of flower love to go around, but it's also easier if there isn't one right next door to you. So that's something that we researched, is that we would be the only flower farm in the area. I think next, thinking about your stand design. So thinking about like climate. So for us, it is really hot in Oklahoma and it is super windy. So I knew for me, I never wanted a stand that was like open, like a really small, simple stand, like a table setup. Like I knew that wouldn't be a great setup for us here in Oklahoma because I wanted it to be self-serve. I wanted to be able to leave. I didn't want to have to worry about flower buckets falling over. We don't live on farm, so I'm not right there to solve the problem. So we purchased a small shed to go on our property, and that was super helpful because the flowers are inside of it. They're protected. I don't have to worry about them getting rained on. I don't have to worry about the wind. It's tucked under a tree, so even on hot days, I don't really have to worry about them. It's just really easy. So think about that. Like it's great to start small if you just want to set a table out if you're right there. But if you think this is something that you might go a little bigger with, then investing in like a small building, knowing that your flowers will be protected, is also a great way to go about it. I think the other consideration, and maybe not something we considered in our first year of having our farm stand, but something we're definitely considering in the future is there anything else that you want to sell in your farm stand? So obviously we're a flower farm, so we're selling flowers, but in going into year 3 of our farm, we will be adding other products into our farm stand that make sense to go along with a flower purchase. So, we're going to be adding gift cards. We're calling them Buttercup Bucks because our flower farm stand's name is Buttercup, and so we'll be adding that. We're going to be adding candles in. We'll be adding gift greeting cards in because a card with flowers at Mother's Day just makes sense. And so all things that we will be making ourselves, because I still want it to be products that have been produced by our farm or by other producers around us. So I've definitely considered on holidays carrying other producers' products. I just think that can be another draw for people to come if they're purchasing more than one thing. Okay, so now tips for running a farm stand. So I think some of the things you have to think about is pricing. What is your price strategy for your farm stand? Are you going to have multiple bouquet sizes? Is it going to be self-serve? If it's going to be self-serve, does multiple price points get confusing? So for our farm, I would say actually I probably did a little bit of both. There were days when I would do 2 different price points. There are days where I would have just one consistent price point, but I do think consistency is really important in a farm stand. So ultimately we landed on just one price point for our flowers. and stuck with that. I'm still kind of toying with what we'll do next year because I think there's advantages to both. I think there's like the whole price anchoring marketing concept, and I think that that is true. And I think that it can work really well where you set, a higher price point and a lower price point and then have a middle price point. And your goal is really to sell that middle price point. But by having that lower and higher, it makes the middle look like the best value. So I think that that's one strategy that can definitely work. For us, I think that for a while we'll just continue with one price point just because it's easier. May have multiple price points just on holidays. That's really what I did last year. I offered like vase arrangements at a higher price point on holidays, along with our set normal wrapped bouquet prices. All right, let's talk about marketing for your farm stand. So this is probably the most important thing that you're going to do. So if you want customers to show up to your farm stand, you have to market your farm stand, unless you're on a busy road. But even then, why not market it too? Because then you're just going to have more customers come. So for me, I have focused on Facebook marketing. I think that in this year, we may lean more towards focusing on moving towards email marketing and moving towards maybe a little bit of Instagram, because I do find that I do have customers coming from Instagram. I never realize it, and then I post and then I'm like, oh, like some of our sales do come from Instagram, so I need to do a better job of actually showing up there a little more often. But typically what I had always thought was like Instagram's more like national, Facebook's more local, but I am seeing a little bit of traffic coming from Instagram. So I might not focus on it a lot, but at least try to like put some things on there. But for us, Facebook is where we're primarily doing the majority of our marketing. And when I say marketing, I just mean that I am consistently showing up every single day on Facebook. And so what that looks like for me is that, I focus on our content pillars. So I have like 3 content pillars for our farm, and that is family, flowers, and education. And so I am talking about the flowers we're growing. Let me say it different. I am showing the beautiful flowers that we're growing. That's really like my flower category. And then family, I'm talking about like our family run farm. So I'm talking about what Conley, my daughter's doing on the farm. I'm talking about what my husband Derek is doing on the farm, what project he's working on, what I'm doing at the farm. And so I'm always showing like, I want them to know who they're purchasing from, because people don't buy things, if it's the same exact product, why not just go to Walmart and buy your flowers versus coming to my farm stand and buy your flowers? It's because we've built a connection and we've built a relationship. And so that is what I'm trying to do with our Facebook, is to build that connection and relationship with our customers to where they feel like they know me, and that they know that when they come by from Jordan's Flower Farm, that they are, supporting her daughter and supporting her family. And that's the connection that I'm really striving to build. So that's why family is one of my content pillars, because I really want to build that connection with our customers. And then education usually is because I want them to understand why our flowers cost a little bit more than if they're going to the grocery store. I want them to know that I've gone and taken off that frost cloth 7 million times in the winter time so that they can have those beautiful ranunculus in the spring, and those beautiful anemones. Like, I want them to understand that. I want them to understand why it costs so much. I want them to be thinking like, oh, I watched her take care of those for 6 months. So of course this bouquet is going to cost $30 in the spring, Like, I want them to have that and understand that. And so, I've done like a big long post on like peony education so that they can understand like peonies cost a ton of stems, because a lot of dollars per stem, because, it's taken 3 years to cultivate that peony crop. I want them to, at a baseline, have that understanding. But I'm also always trying to make our posts relatable, right? You don't want it to be like flower farming content. You don't want to say like, oh, I'm going to go space my ranunculus 4 inches apart today and run my drip lines. I want to be talking about, or gosh, I can't plant my tulips until December because they're sitting in a cooler getting chill hours. Like, you want to be talking to them in a way that they would understand. And so like, gosh, like, how you've been waiting to put up your Christmas decorations? That's exactly how I've been waiting to plant my tulips. Like, just like you're ready. Oh, I'm so ready. Like, just making it relatable to them in a way that you're talking to your audience. And so that's another thing, is understanding who your customer base is. Like, I'm very clear that I'm talking to women in Tulsa County, Creek County, that are between ages 30 and 55. Like, that is my target market. I would love to get it to a point where I know them even better than that, but right now that's how I know them. And so I think you just have to be really intentional with your marketing. That is what drives people to our farm stand. So when we started our flower farm stand back in March, we had 1,000 followers on Facebook, and now we are in December, and we are almost creeping up on 8,000 followers. So it's not a huge following, but it's a big enough following when I'm only trying to have local followers to really make an impact in our business. And so, I'll tell you, I set a goal back in March of saying, 1 year from now, I want to have 10,000 followers, because I think that's what it takes. If I can get 1% of them to my flower stand, that's what it takes to make this farm successful. And so that's really my goal. That was my goal this year. And so we haven't hit it yet, but I still have 3 months to get there. So we'll see if I can hit my 10,000 by March goal. I track it like a big nerd in a spreadsheet every week. And so I'm tracking a little bit behind on my goal right now. So I need to do some more Facebook posting and figure out how to get people to care about flowers in the winter, because honestly, it's really hard. And then going into this year, I'm really shifting my focus to email marketing, because I do think that there can be times when the algorithm's just not showing your content to your followers. And that can be really tricky then to make sales when not all of your followers are seeing your content. So, yeah, I don't know a lot about email marketing yet. It's definitely the thing that I want to lean into and learn in this 3rd year of flower farming. Okay, so let's talk about customer experience at a farm stand. So you want your farm stand to feel welcoming, inviting. It needs to feel like an experience, somewhere that they like want to go every week to get flowers. And so what we did for that was, one, from like a traffic perspective, not that we have like traffic in year 1 of having a farm stand, but like in the spring, we had like one day that we had a line. It's very exciting. But like, you got to think about it. If you're trying to build something big, build it right the first time. So, we have a circle drive for our farm stand, and then we have like landscape beds that in future years we'll be able to landscape and have it be really pretty at the front. For this year, we just put down some like free mulch and like some plants that we were able to put in. So we're not trying to spend a ton of money on the landscaping just yet. And then we have a gravel walkway that goes up to our farm stand. And then inside of our farm stand, we have it painted all white, and have a really cute pink dresser in there that has all the flowers on it when they come in. And so you just want it to feel like a very welcoming environment. The other thing that I wanted was, I wanted them to be able to see the flowers. And so we have like 4 quadrants of flower fields up at the front of our farm. It's not necessarily where we grow like the majority of our flowers. It is where we grew the majority of our summer flowers this year, because summer tends to be a lot slower in Oklahoma, so we don't need a lot of flowers in the summertime here. So you want them to be able to like see the flowers, be able to take a selfie with the flowers. And then also, the other thing that we added this year was, we have a chicken coop up by our flower shed. And so we added that chicken coop so that, because I wanted little kids to be like, oh, I want to go see the chickens. I want to go check on the chickens while mom gets her flowers. So you want it to be an experience for your customers. So I'm really excited. I think our customers loved it. And I think that they'll love it even more in year 2. I'm excited to see how year 3, year 2 of the farm stand. I'm excited to see like what the customers think in the spring, because we have a lot more customers coming in the spring. Another thing that you want to think about with your customer experience is consistency. So the times that you are open, you want to always be open at a consistent time, because you want to create a habit in their life. And so what we did is, like, Friday mornings, we opened at 7 a.m. every single week. That only changed once it switched to fall. And so we'd open at 7 a.m. That would allow people to come on their way to work to get flowers. Let's say they wanted to, pick up flowers for one of their best friends at work that day, they could come get them. And then that allowed them to always come on their lunch breaks too, but we'd always open at 7 a.m. on Fridays. On Saturdays, we would open at 9 a.m. And then on Sundays, we would open at noon. And that was because in Oklahoma, everyone goes to church on Sundays. And so I could technically be open at 7 a.m. on Sundays. Like I'm always ready and have the farm stand stocked on Sundays. We don't have any customers those first few hours because everyone's at church. So we open at noon on Sundays. I think I'd like to get to a point where we're open at like a set time every day. So like 7 a.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday would really like be my preference. But that's really tiring. And so the other thing that you want to consider is like, I want to be consistent. And so while I would rather say 7 a.m. Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, I know that if I do that to myself, I won't be consistent with opening the stand at 7 a.m. and then I'm going to create inconsistency. So instead, I do 7 a.m. on Fridays, 10 a.m. on Saturdays, and noon on Sundays because I know that I can be consistent with having flowers in the stand at those times. Also, make sure that you post your address everywhere. So that is one of the most important things having a farm stand is you want people to know how to find you. So for us, we put ours in our Facebook banner on our Facebook page, and then every single sales post I make sure to include our full address. It's also on our website. It's also on our Instagram. So I just want people to be able to find us because if they can't find us, they can't get the flowers or they have to ask me how to find them. And so I don't want them to have to ask me. I want it to be very easy for the customer. So they're already making an effort to come all the way to my farm. So I don't want them to also have to ask how to get to my farm. I want them to just be able to find it. So the other thing is that we have our farm listed on Google Maps. We have our farm listed on Apple Maps. So that is easy as possible for our customers to find us. Okay, so let's talk through some lessons learned from 2024. I had to look at my calendar to see because don't we all feel like we're in 2025 already? I feel like we've been planning for 2025 for so long, it's hard to remember we're in 2024. So some lessons learned on the farm stand for 2024. So I think maybe I'll call it lessons learned or things I want to do differently next year. So one of the things that I think we could do better is having signage for our farm. So I still don't have a farm sign. That's kind of embarrassing to say. So like people don't know they've arrived when they've arrived. That's terrible, but it's true. So we've got to get a farm sign, and then it would be great if we could drive some traffic to the farm literally through just like drive-bys. Like we are on a dead-end road, but we are on a dead-end road that happens to be right next to Walmart. So I would love to be able to try to like get some traffic from that. So I definitely want to put up signage on the road headed to our farm. So that's one of the things that I think we can improve on in 2025 is having a farm sign, and also not just having a farm sign, but also having maybe some like directions that make it clear, like this is the pathway that you go up to get your flowers. And so just having a little more signage at the farm, I think would be really helpful. And it would make it a lot easier for our customers and make it really clear of like what they're supposed to do. One of the other things that I think we will do a better job of in 2025 is planning for holidays. So I think that we did fine at it in 2024. Not really any like big issues that I want to address, but things that I just think that we can do better as demand increases. So I really want to be strategic and planning for flower holidays. So for us, the main holidays that we'll have are Easter and Mother's Day, and then 4th of July. There seems to be like a little bit of an uptick. There was when we were at the farmer's market. I didn't feel like there was as much when we had the farm stand. So we'll see how that plays out in 2025. But really making our crop planning around the flower holidays, because honestly, that is when we can make the majority of our sales for the farm stand. So a good chunk of it, honestly, we could make in those 2 weekends. So just want to make sure that we are being very intentional about making sure that for crops that we can succession, that we do plan our successions around those so that we can maximize our sales on that day. So talking about the numbers, let's talk about how do you track profitability for a farm stand? I think a lot of times you hear people talking about profitability and how a farm stand is profitable, but how do you track it? Like, I just think it's so hard. It feels so hard to track profitability for mixed bouquets, which is often what we're selling in farm stands. So I just kind of wanted to share my advice of like, here's what we did, and here's how I would suggest that you track it. So what I did every single week was I came up with a set recipe, and that was our recipe for the week. And so I would make those, I would harvest them on Thursdays, I would make the bouquets, and I would have all the bouquets ready for Friday. If we need more for Saturday and Sundays, then I would make more throughout the weekend as needed. But I would take that recipe and I would put each of those flowers into Excel, and I would put the number of stems, I would put my price per stem that I was charging retail, and then I would put, how many were in each bouquet, and then I would just calculate out until I got to $25. So maybe I will try to make an example and put it here so that you guys can see kind of how I'm tracking it. But then I would also put in like, here's how many I made. And then at the end of the weekend, I would go back in and say, here's how many I sold. And what that gave me the ability to do at the end of the season was say, okay, well, here's all of the data. And I got better at it around like May. So like May and on, I can really track really well and say, okay, here's all of the data. Here are the flowers that our customers loved and were coming out and buying. And so that helps me know for crop planning for next year of how many I need to have of each flower. So it just makes it a lot easier for my crop planning to be able to tell, like on, Mother's Day, we had this percentage of an increase, or, once we got to July, it dropped off this much and we were only making X bouquets a week and only this many were selling. And, but that picked back up in September and then we started making this many. And so it really helped me to be able to see and be able to do my sales projections too, for the farm stand, because I know it can be hard. You're like, well, it's a farm stand. It's not reliable. You don't know how many people are going to come, but you can kind of start to get a sense for what your volume is going to be every week. Like I could always consistently say in July, August, exactly kind of what I needed to make every single week, and we would sell through that by the end of the weekend. So I think it'll be a little trickier in spring, but my plan is to just like make it all every time and see how much we have left over. We'll have a cooler, so we'll be able to kind of rotate things as we need to. Well, that was what it was like for us on our first year having a farm stand. I am really excited to go into next year, year 2 of our farm stand, see if we're able to grow our Facebook following even bigger, see what an impact email marketing has on it, and continue to try to drive traffic to our farm stand. I have a big goal of trying to double our sales at our farm stand this year, so I'm really excited to see if we're able to do it. So if y'all enjoyed today's video, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what other videos you want to see. I have a lot of fun making these, so I'd love to be able to provide content that y'all enjoy watching. See you next time. I was filming a YouTube video. You interrupted. Good, we can be on the outtake here. Hey guys!
Hey guys!
Kaylee just came in and interrupted the video. Woo! This is a prettier version of me. The tanner one for sure. Look at that.
I know, that's what I already said yesterday.
I'm gonna put this in at the end.
Wait.